The mic wasn't on, so I just said Shabbat Shalom to all of you, and none of you heard me. Fantastic. We're doing great. Okay, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. I'm not going to go through it all again, but it's lovely to see all of your faces. And so glad that you are here. Shabbat Shalom. This is my third Psukei de Zimra of the morning. My cousin was bar mitzvahed at Addis, Israel this morning, and I did Psukei de Zimra at 6:30 a.m., which I really appreciate that we do Psukei de Zimra at 10 a.m. after that. But it was lovely. It was really beautiful. Josh Rashofsky was there, which was wonderful to be able to sing with him. And then I just went outside to do Psukei de Zimra with the bar mitzvah boy, Avi Nodowitz. So I'm really excited for this third Psukei de Zimra. It's a chazaka. If you do something 3 times, it's a chazaka. So I'm excited to be able to do this third Psukei de Zimra together. We're going to begin on page 103 or page 65 or page 10. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we say the page numbers for the Lev Shalem first, the Sidur Sim Shalom for Shabbat second, so the slimmer Sim Shalom, and then the full volume Sim Shalom last. So again, those pages are 103, 65, or page 10. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan sechvivin alevchim ben yom uvelayla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani betzamo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzarki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael betifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten layev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamavir sheina meinai. Uchnu Mahame afapai v'yirtzah mefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu shetigalenu b'toratecha. Utenenu yom v'chol yom lechenu l'chesed rachamim beinecha v'nei korim v'tigmalenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Turn now to page 112, the Psalm for Shabbat, or page 72, or page 32. Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh Shebo Hayu Halavim Amrim Avit Amidash Mizmor Shelo Yom HaShabbat Tov L'Adonai. Magalu Masecha Adonai Me'eram Kol Machshavatecha Yishmeh Lo Yada. Odienu Vun Beseva Deshenim Verananim Lehagir Ki Hashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Avlatabo. Page 120. Page 81 or page 50. Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. Armi Chadonai Ki Dilatani Lazamachti Levi. Eilecha Adonai Ekra Vel Adonai Etchanan. Eilecha Adonai Ekra Vel Adonai Etchanan. Shema Adonai vechoneni. Adonai ozer li. Shema Adonai vechoneni. Adonai ozer Le'eman yizamecha chava v'lo yidom, Adonai Elohai le'olam odeka. Mourner's Kaddish, page 121, page 82, or page 52. Yit gadal ve'yit kadash shemei Rabbi, be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei, bechayechon uviyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari ve'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbi mevarach leolam lomei almaya. Yit barach ve'yish tabach ve'yit pa'ar ve'yit romam ve'yit naseh ve'yit hadar ve'yit ale ve'yit halal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma ve'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Isaac, I have not forgotten that you are going to lead us in Mourner's Kaddish. I didn't see your picture until after I had started. So Mourner's Kaddish at the end is yours. And if our text can put up the participant list so that I can just see everyone who is here, since we have a large number of people, that would be wonderful. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Shapiro. Lovely to see you. No one else can see you, so they think I'm talking to myself, but it's really lovely. You can go around. Okay, while we're getting set for Baruch She'amar, Rabbi Shapiro is going to do a little run-by in the back of me, so if you would like to say hello to him. Page 122, page 83, or page 54. Where are you? No, you have to keep going. There he is. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi Shapiro. Baruch She'amar, if you're able to do so, please rise. Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch hu sever shi, Baruch hu mever se, Baruch hu zem koyim, Baruch hu mechem al haaretz, Baruch hu. Yachid Chelamim, Melech Meshubach Vardei Ad Shemo Gadol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Mehulal Batishbachot. Rabbi Shapiro just asked if he could lead the rest of Psukei de Zimra. Isn't that right, Rabbi Shapiro? Okay, goodbye. Shabbat Shalom. We'll turn now to the middle of page 126, page 86, or page 58. Enjoy your parents, Rabbi Shapiro. Hoshia et amecha uvarech en achlatecha ureim 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 v'nasim ad haolam. Hoshia et amecha uvarech en achlatecha ureim 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 v'nasim ad haolam. Nafsheni v'yatal anai zeru magninu v'yivais. ואני בחסדך בטחתי, יגל ליבי בישועתך, אשיר על אדוני, כי גמל עלי. Page 128, page 88, or page 62. לדוד בשנותו את עמו לפני אבימלך ויגרשהו וילך. מי האיש החפץ חיים, אוהב ימים לראות טוב, נצור לשונך מהרה, ושפתיך מדבר מרמה, סור מרע ועשה טוב, בקש שלום ורודפהו עיני אדוני אל צדיקים ואוזניו אל שבתם. Podeh Adonai nevesh avadav velo ya'ashmu kol hachosim bo. If you're able to do so, please rise. Page 132, page 92, or page 72. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Elohei ha'Elohim, ki le'olam chasto. Hodu l'Adonai ha'Elohim, ki le'olam chasto. L'asani v'lad gadol le'levadah. Beyad chazaka uvizroa netuya. Shebeshifleinu zachar lanu ki le'olam chasto vayifrekeinu mitzareinu ki le'olam chasto noten lechem lechol basar ki le'olam chasto Hashamayim ki le'olam chasto. You may be seated. Nafshi chadal Adonai, Yisrael Malginu, Ki vo yismach libenu, Ki v'shem kodsho v'tachnu, Yihi chastecha Adonai aleinu, Kasher yichanu lach, Mizmor shir le'yom HaShabbat. Tov l'Adonai l'Yisrael. Odienu v'meseva, Jeshenim v'ranim iyu, Le'agid ki yashar Adonai, Tzuri v'lo avlatavo, Adonai malach keu lavesh, Lavesh Adonai oz hitazar, Avtikon tevel batimot. Eidotecha nemnu meod, Levetcha navakodesh, Adonai le'orech yamim. Yanananai, yanananai, yainai, yainai, yainananai, yanananai, yainai. Page 136, 96, or 81. We're going to come together again at the kuf at the end of this acrostic of Ashrei to sing a tune that we've done a few times, but I wanted to be able to sing again with you today, because after all, I've done Ashrei now 5 times this morning, and so I feel like we need a new tune to get this Ashrei to be really exciting. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Od Yelalu Chasela Ashrei Ham Shekacha Lo Ashrei Ham Shadonai Elohav Tilad. פותח את ידיך ומסביר לכל רצון צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסי בכל מעשיו. קרוב אדוני לכל קורב לכל אשר יקראו באמת. קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת. Ayam bararira, ayam bararira, dai ho, ayam bararira, dandira, ayam bararira yo. Ayam dararira, diraram, dirarira yo. Ayam bararira, dirarira, daya. תהילת אדוני דבר פיו, ורק כל בשר שום קשר לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברכיה מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה, הללויה, הלי נפשי את אדוני, אהלה אדוני בחיי, זמר לעבדים. אשר של יעקב בזר סיברו עליו. אדוני שומר את גרים, יתום ואלמנה יעודד, ודרך רשעים יעבד. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but this weekend, this Shabbat, is Refugee Shabbat. And so there are moments, specifically in Psukei de Zimra, but of course in our Torah readings as well, that bring up this idea of not only us being refugees, but us taking care of those who are refugees. And if you look in the English of this particular psalm, you see it very clearly. Adonai keeps faith forever, secures justice for the oppressed, provides food for the hungry, releases the bound from their chains, gives sight to the blind, straightens those bent low, and loves those who act justly. So I hope that this is one of many Shabbatot where we can say that we have ourselves in mind as refugees, but also those in our midst who we can be helping, who are still seeking asylum and still seeking our help, who are refugees in our country. We'll turn now to Psalm page, also a Psalm, Psalm 148, page 139, page 99, or page 86. Hallelujah, 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 Adonai min hashamayim, hallelujah, b'meromim, hallelujah, chomel hachav, hallelujah, kol tzeva'av, hallelujah, shemesh ve'yareach, hallelujah, kol koch ve'or, hallelujah, shemei hashamayim ve'hamayim, asher me'al hashamayim, hallelujah, et shem Adonai ki utziva v'nivrahu ve'ya'amidem le'olam, chok natan ve'lo yavor, hallelujah, et shem Adonai ki utziva v'nivrahu ve'ya'amidem le'olam, chok natan ve'lo yavor, hallelujah. הצדדים וכל התמותת. וירם קרע לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו, hallelujah. Page 141, page 100, or page 88. Hallelujah, 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 bekodsho, hallelujah, birki hauzo, hallelujah, vivoratav, hallelujah, kerov gulo, hallelujah, beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel vechinor, hallelujah, betofu machol, hallelujah, beminim ve'ugav, hallelujah, betziot leishama, hallelujah, betziot leitrua, kol anshama, tehallelujah, hallelujah, kol anshama, tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah, Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen, Baruch Adonai Messiah Shechani Shalom. If you're able to do so, please rise the top of the next page, page 142, or the next page. Lecha Adonai gdula ve'agevura ve'atiferet ve'hanetzach ve'hahod ki chov hashamayim v'etzach Adonai. Tahu Adonai Elohim, asher b'chata be'Avraham, v'tzato me'or kastim, v'samta shamo Avraham, u'matzat levavo, ne'eman lefanecha, v'charot imro habrit. V'hayam b'kat livneihem, v'yavru b'tochayam b'basha, v'rodfei mishlach v'insolok, kmo v'mayim aziv, v'yoshe Adonai b'yom hahu et Yisrael me'ez. Vayaminu b'Adonai u'v'Moshe avdo, az yashir Moshe v'nei Yisrael asher hazalana, asher l'nei ki yoga, sus v'rachvo rama v'yam, ozi v'zi matov v'yishuvos. Adonai imloch le'olam va'ek, Hilanai machamash v'gahiv, v'alu mashim be'aretz l'shvat arisav, ve'ayta l'Adonai imlocha, ve'haya Adonai l'melech ha'kol ha'aretz, b'yom hahu Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. You may be seated. Rabbi Aaron Alexander this morning shared a beautiful thought before we sang Nishmat at approximately 6:45 in the morning. And he shared that Nishmat is the moment in which we take that which we do subconsciously. We use our breath to praise. We use our breath to breathe, to live, which is in and of itself praising. And we put it to words that that's what we're doing. We're saying the soul of everything that lives praises God. Because sometimes it's hard to remember that that's what our breath is for. We take it for granted. We don't sit around waiting for our next breath to come. We hope that, God willing, we have many breaths that we are not aware of. And so this is when the subconscious, that which we do all the time, praising God, whether in just breathing and being alive and being in relationship with others, or literally in using your breath to breathe and say words of prayer, this is when we acknowledge that that's what we are doing with our breath. So I hope that everyone can just take a moment to breathe and to recognize what that breath is that you're using in this moment and what you are praising today and this Shabbat and for this week. Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimecha Adonai Eloheinu Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimecha Adonai Eloheinu Yananai Veruach kol basar tefer termam zichracha makan v'tami l'melav. Ilu finu malay shirakaya muleshonenu rina kamon gala vasutinish. Ein anachnu maspikim lehodot lecha Adonai Eloheinu ulevarech et shemecha lecha t'elef alefei alafim v'ruvat b'mayim. Kol atzmotai tomana Adonai mi chamocha matzilani machazach. Nehalelechecha neshabechecha nufarecha nuvarech et shem kodshecha kamor leDavid. Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol korvai et shem kodsho. Hayal b'tatzu moduzecha hagadol b'chvod shemecha. Hagibor lanetzach v'nora v'nartecha. Hamelech hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisa. I'm going to turn this over to Cantor Michelle Stone. And I'm going to be going outside to the fields to hear Avi Nodowitz give his bar mitzvah drash. And I will come back for the Torah service with the one caveat that Cantor Stone, there is a chance that I have no idea what the timing is out there. So if for some reason you get to Torah service before I'm back, Rick is reading the first 7 aliyot for us. So we can just prompt him to do so and he can start. He's very equipped to do so without me. So we can just start without me even if I'm not here. Okay. Cantor Michelle Stone.
We're on page 147 in the red book. I'm sorry, I don't have the pages for the other books. Shochenad marom bekadosh shemo v'chatuv anenu tzadikim b'Adonai leisharim nava tehila befi sharim titala u'divrei tzadikim titbarach Uvishan chasidim titromam, uvkerev kedoshim titadash, uvmakalot ribibot amcha beit Yisrael. Shekein chavat kol yisurim lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei avotenu lehodot lehalel leshabeach lefaer leromem leader levarech le'aleu kales al kol Divrei Shirot B'Tishbachot, David ben Yishai, Abdecha Meshichecha. You may rise. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad Makenu. Brachot vehodaot me'ata ve'ad olam, Baruch ata Adonai, El melech gadol batishbachot, El haodaot Adon haniflaot, Habocher b'shirei zimra, Melech elchei olamim. May be seated. We're going to continue with the Shachrit service. We're not going to make any interruptions once I start. We're starting on page 150 in Lev Shalom, 107 in Sim Shalom, and 340 in the Sim Shalom, the full Sim Shalom with weekday and Shabbat. I'm going to continue with Shachrit. However, we're going to have a guest singer join us for Eladon. Rick Muller is going to introduce us to the Eladon of his childhood, of when he was growing up. So when we get to page 151, 108, and 342, I'm going to stop singing. Kenji, if we can make sure that Rick Muller is able to unmute so that he can lead us in Eladon. Now we're on page 150. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. אין כרך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גואלנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים.
Eladon kol hamasim, Baruch umvorak b'fi kol neshama, Godlo v'tuvo maleh olam, Dat u'tvuna sovavim oto, Amigae al chayot hakodesh, v'nedar b'chavod al hamerkava, Zechota misho lifnei chiso, Chesed v'rachamim lifnei kvodo, Tovim meorot shebara Eloheinu, Yitzaram bedat, b'vina uv'haskel, Koach v'gvura natan bahem, Liat mashlim b'kerev tevel, Meleim ziv umfikim nogach, Na'ezivam b'chol ha'olam, Semechem betzetam v'sasim bevoam, Osim b'yema ratzon konam, V'chavod notnim lishmo, Tzola v'rina l'zecher malchuto, Kara l'shemesh v'yizrachor, Rav hitkin surat alvana, Shevach notnim lo, Kol tzva marom, Tiferet u'gedula, Serafim ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh. לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. Thank you. Back to you.
תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשיך ידיך ועל מאורי אור שעשית יפרוך הסלע. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים בהמה וביראה רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובתורה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך. וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצמם בנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנימה קדושה כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. באופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש גדול מנסים לעומת סרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. להאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה ויראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו, כי אל כהן שועתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע. באמת להודות לך ויחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. אל מלך נאמן. שמו ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Adonai Elohechem emet. לדור ודור קיים ושמו קיים, בחיסון אחון ומלכותו ומנתו לעד קיימת. אמת שאתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו גואלנו גואל אבותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו פודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך, עזרת אבותינו אתה מעולם. Elot Lelion Barchum Barach, Moshe Ubnei Yisrael Lechanu Shira, B'simcha Rabba B'emru Cholam, Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha Nedar B'Kodesh, Nora Tehilot, O Sefer. שירה חדשה שבחוג גאולים לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד צור ישראל Kuma Bezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu Mecha, Yuda veYisrael, Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. Yainanai, yai, yai, yai. Yainanai, yai, yai. Yainanai, yai, yai. Yai, 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 yai. Yainanai, yai, yai, yai. Yainanai, yai, yai. Yainanai, yai, yai. Yai, 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 yai. Oh, yainanai, yai, 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 yai. Yai, 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 yai. Yainanai, yai, 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 yai. Oh, yai, 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 yai. Yainanai, yai, yai, yai. Yai, nai, nai, nai. Yai, nai, nai, nai. Yai, nai. Yai, nai, nai.
Yasher Koach, Cantor Stone. At some point, if you'll bring me back those page numbers, that would be awesome. We are going to continue with our Torah reading, and Rick Muller is going to give us a little intro and tell us, do you have the Eitz Chaim there, Rick? Oh, yeah, but do you have the Eitz Chaim? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So he'll tell us chapter, verse, and page number in a moment, but I want to just share one quick thing, because we're not going to talk about it today during our text study together. There is a very beautiful, maybe one of my favorite pieces of Midrash that Rashi actually quotes as give me 1 second. Thank you. That Rashi quotes as a commentary to the tablets being broken. And that is that instead of saying Asher Shibarta, we should say Yasher Koach Sheshibarta. That there is something profound in the breaking of these tablets that should actually be praised, not just that it happened and move on, or the opposite of that, which would be anger, but actually to praise Moshe for breaking these tablets. And the rabbis have a great time with, why would we praise Moshe for breaking something that is so essential to our people? And as I mentioned at the beginning of services, my cousin had his bar mitzvah today at Addis Israel in Washington, D.C., and this was the piece of Torah that he chose to share. And one of the aspects of this bar mitzvah this morning that was so powerful was that a year ago, he was supposed to have his bar mitzvah. He'll be 14 on March 7th. A year ago, he was supposed to have his bar mitzvah on March 14th. And that was precisely the day that Addis Israel closed. And so he was the first bar mitzvah of a slew that couldn't happen. But because he was the first, there was a lot of disappointment and a lot of unknown and a lot of brokenness. And one of the things that he spoke about this morning that then Rabbi Aaron Alexander blessed him with is that sometimes we need to have an element of our lives or something that we think of as holy and profound be broken so that we actually recognize its worth. Sometimes we need to have a broken heart to be able to find a full heart. Sometimes we need to have an aspect of our lives broken down to be able to find wholeness. So because he's my cousin and because I'm extremely proud of him, but also because this is a profound piece of Torah that works at any time, but specifically when dealing with a world like the one that we are in, I hope that we can all think of the ways in which we've broken down. And that doesn't have to be bad. In fact, in Moshe's case, it was great. But that we've broken down elements of ourselves, elements of our lives, elements of things that make up who we are, so that we can start to realize and recognize what it means to be shalem, what it means to be whole. So I'll turn it now over to Rick Muller, who's going to read for us and share a few bits of trope wisdom, is my guess, and tell us a page number and chapter and verse. please.
Okay. Hi, Rabbi. Thank you.
No problem.
So I volunteered to read today, and I found in the Luach that there's a special way to do it today. So I just want to read you this one paragraph from the Luach. It says, chant most of the story of the golden calf in a somewhat subdued voice. And the word subdued is bold, which is funny all by itself. But anyway, to symbolically minimize the embarrassment the congregants experience upon hearing the terrible misdeeds of our ancestors. And then it goes, be sure that all the words and ta'amim, tropes, candilations, which is nice that they explain that, remain clearly audible to the congregation. So I'm supposed to be subdued, but everything has to be clearly audible. So I'll try to do that. And then it lists the verses that are sung as usual and the ones that are sung subdued. So that's the game today.
They knew that we were going to be on Zoom because you can be much more amplified this way and we'll be able to hear you.
I just hope I can do the subdued part without too much volume. I don't know. We'll see.
So where are you going to start, Rick, and what page are we on?
It's page 529 in the Eitz Chaim. It's the end of chapter 31. There's a good sentence there, and then it goes subdued. So verse 18, where it says Sheni, or in the margin, we're in the second triennial. Page 529, Exodus 31, verse 18. Blessing before, huh? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Vayiten el Moshe kechaloto ledaber ito behar Sinai shnei luchot haitut luchot even Ktuvim be'etzba Elohim. Vayaram ki voshesh Moshe leret min hahar vayikahel ha'am al haron vayomru elav kum aseh lanu Elohim asher yelchu lefanenu ki zeh Moshe ha'ish asher elanu meretz Mitzrayim Lo yadanu mehayalo, vayomer alehem aharon, parku nizmei azahav, asher beoznei neshechem, b'nechem uvnotechem, v'haviu elai, vayitparku kolam, et nizmei hazahav asher beozneihem, vayaviu el aharon, vayikach miadam. Vayatzoroto bacheret, vayaasehu egel masecha, vayomru, el Elohecha Yisrael, asher elucha meretz Mitzrayim, vayar Aharon, vayiven mizbeach lefanav, vayikra Aharon vayomar, chag l'Adonai machar, vayashkimu mimochorat, vayalu olot, Vayagishu shlamim, vayeshev ha'am lechol v'shato, vayakumu letzachek. Okay, and the second aliyah is page 531, verses 7 to 10 subdued, 11 as usual. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe lemor lech red ki shichei tamcha asher eleta meretz Mitzrayim saru maher min haderech asher tzivitim asu lahem egel masecha vayishtachavu lo vayizbechu lo vayomru el Elohecha Yisrael asher elucha meretz Mitzrayim ויאמר אדוני אל משה, ראיתי את העם הזה, והנה עם קשה עורף הוא, ועתה הניחה לי, ויחר אפי בהם ואכלם, ואעשה אותך לגוי גדול. ויחל משה את פני אדוני אלוהיו, ויאמר, למה אדוני יחרה אפך בעמך, אשר הוצאת מארץ מצרים בכוח גדול וביד חזקה. Okay. Page 532, verse 12 to 14. Lama yomru mitzrayim lemor berahotziam laharogotam beharim ulchalotam me'al pnei hadama shuv mecharon apecha v'nachem al hara le'amecha Zechor Avraham Yitzchak Yisrael Avadecha Asher Nishbata Lahem Bach Vatdaber Alehem Arbet Zarachem ככוכבי השמיים בכל הארץ הזאת אשר אמרתי אתן לזרעכם ונחלו לעולם וינחם אדוני על ההרה אשר דיבר לעשות לעמו. Okay, the fourth aliyah is 15 to 24, page 533. Vayifen vayered Moshe min hahar ushne luchot ha'edut biyado luchot ktuvim mishnei Evrehem mizeh umizeh hem ktuvim vehaluchot maseh Elohim heima והמכתב, מכתב אלוהים הוא חרוט על הלוחות, וישמע יהושע את כל העם בראו, ויאמר אל משה כל מלחמה במחנה, ויאמר אין כל ענות גבורה, ואין כל ענות חלושה, כל ענות אנוכי שומע, ויהי כאשר קרב אל המחנה, וירא את העגל ומחולות, ויחרף משה, וישלך מידיו את הלוחות, וישבר אותם תחת ההר, ויקח את העגל אשר עשו, וישרוף באש, ויטחן עד אשר דק, וייזר על פני המים, וישקה בני ישראל. ויאמר משה אל אהרון, מה עשה לך העם הזה, כי הבאת עליו חטאה גדולה. ויאמר אהרון, אל יחרף אדוני, אתה ידעת את העם, כי בראו. ויאמרו לי, עשה לנו אלוהים, אשר ילכו לפנינו, כי זה משה האיש, אשר לנו מארץ מצרים, לא ידענו מהיה לו. ואומר להם למי זהב, יתפרקו ויתנו לי, ואשליכהו באש, ויצא העגל הזה.
Thank you. We're going to take a pause here to do a Misha Beirach for Cholim for those in our community and those in our family and our friends who need a prayer of healing at this moment. I will read the Misha Beirach list from the synagogue, but if there's anybody that you'd like to add, as I'm reading the names, please add your own names of those in your circle that need a prayer for healing at this moment. Misha Beirach, Avotenu Avraham, Yitzhak, v'Yaakov, v'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim. Zahava Yafa bat Esther, Rivka bat Pesha, Leah Fredo bat Bracha,
Catherine bat Sarah, Harav Yaakov Baruch ben Uri v'Chava, Yosef Menachem Mendel ben Gittel, Yehuda ben Abraham v'Sara, Fredel bat Rachel, Gutman Wolf ben Frumaguta, Metuka Sarah bat Shendel Golda, Baila Esther Gittel bat Fega, Benzion Ben Gittel, Stanley Greitzer, Eliyahu Ben Shena Shira, Yelena Kramer, Yehudit bat Liba Tzivya, Aaron Abraham Ben Adina, Rivka bat Nechama, Hillel Ben Yaakov, Tzirel Chana bat Tzivya, Risa Chana bat Chasya Geula, Abraham Simcha ben Abraham Basara, Sarah Tzerel bat Miriam, Menachem ben Lili, Natan David ben Baruch Vemina, Ruth Freda bat Mirel, Yehuda Yisrael ben Leah, Shulamit bat Miriam, Yehudit bat Shulamit, Leib Yosef ben Sarah, Mordechai ben Esther, Yehudit Liba bat Fega, Chaim ben Sarah Leah, Marion bat Angelica, Maria Teresa Estrada, Yosefa Lilach bat Miriam, Lucinda Carpa, Michael Cuenco, Penina de Reben, Chana bat Roshia. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Alehem Lahachazikam U'Lerapotam V'Yishlach Lahem Meira Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh V'Refuat HaGuf Betoch Sha'ar HaCholim V'Chazek Et Yidei HaOskim B'Tzorcheichem Shabbat Hi Milizok U'Refuah Karova Lavo Hashtabagala U'Vizman Kariv V'Nomar Amen. We continue with the fifth aliyah. Rick, can you please share with us the page and the chapter and verse?
Yes, page 535, verse 25. 535, verse 25. Okay. Vaya Moshe tam kifaruahu kifrao aharon l'shimtza b'kamehem. Vayamod Moshe b'shar hamachane, vayomer miladonai elai, vayasfu elav kol bnei Levi, vayomer lahem, כה אמר אדוני אלוהי ישראל, שימו איש חרבו על ירחו, עברו ושובו משער לשער במחנה, והרגו איש את אחיו, ואיש את רעהו, ואיש את קרובו. ויעשו בני לוי כדבר משה, ויפול מן העם ביום ההוא, כ3,000 איש. ויאמר משה, מילאו ידכם היום לאדוני, כי איש בבנו ובאחיו, ולתת עליכם היום bracha. And the sixth aliyah is on the bottom of page 535, verse 30, going to the next page. Subdued, normal, subdued. ויהי ממחרת ויאמר משה אל העם, אתם חטאתם חטאה גדולה, ועתה אל אדוני, אולי אכפרה בעד חטאכם. וישוב משה אל אדוני ויאמר, אנא חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה, ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב, ועתה אם תישא חטאתם, ומאין וכן הנה מספרך אשר כתבת. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, מי אשר חטא לי אמחנו מספרי, ועתה לך נחה את העם אל אשר דיברתי לך. הנה מלאכי ילך לפניך, וביום פקדי ופקדתי עליהם חטאתם. ויגוף אדוני את העם על אשר עשו את עגל אשר עשה אחרון. וידבר אדוני אל משה, לך עלה מזה, אתה והעם, אשר העלית מארץ מצרים, אל הארץ, אשר נשבעתי, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב לאמור, לזרעך אתננה, ושלחתי לפניך מלאך, וגירשתי את הכנעני, האמורי, והחיתי והפריזי, החיבי והיבוסי, אל ארץ זבת חלב ודבש, כי לא אלה בקרבך, כי עם קשה עורף אתה, פן אכלך בדרך, וישמע העם את הדבר הרע הזה, ויתבלו ולא שתו איש אדיו עליו. ויאמר אדוני אל משה, אמור אל בני ישראל, אתם עם קשה עורף, רגע אחד אלה בקרבך, וכיליתיך, ואתה הורד אדיך מעליך, ואדע מה אעשה לך. ויתנצלו בני ישראל את אדיים מהר חורב. And then the seventh aliyah is the bottom of page 537, as usual. Verse 7. ומשה ייקח את האוהל, ונטע לו מחוץ למחנה, הרחק מן המחנה, וקרא לו אוהל מועד. והיה כה מבקש אדוני, יצא אל אוהל מועד, אשר מחוץ למחנה, והיה כצאת משה אל האוהל, יקומו כולם, וניצבו איש פתח אוהלו, והביטו אחרי משה עד בואו האוהלה. והיה כבוא משה האוהלה, ירד עמוד הענן, ועמד פתח האוהל, ודיבר עם משה, וראה כולם את עמוד הענן, עומד פתח האוהל, וקם כולם, והשתחוו איש פתח אוהלו. ודיבר אדוני אל משה פנים אל פנים, כאשר ידבר איש אל רעהו, ושב אל המחנה, ומשרתו יהושע בן נון נער, לא ימיש מתוך האוהל.
Yasher koach, Rick, as always. I'm running out of things to say about you because you read so often that it's it's hard for me to keep coming up with things. But it's lovely to hear you read again. We are not done with Torah reading. We are now going to hear from Annette Berman, who is on here somewhere. And as soon as Annette is unmuted and spotlit,
here I am.
Here you are. Can you tell us why you're reading for us today, Annette?
Well, 27 years ago, I had a woman's minyan. I didn't have. We formed a woman's minyan to celebrate my 60th birthday. And it was the first time I'd ever looked or seen inside of a Torah. But this was my Torah reading portion, the longest maftir in the book, I believe. And so I'm 87. Yesterday I was 87. So I'm celebrating 27 years of reading this this portion. It's an honor. And frankly, I hadn't spent a great deal of time going over the Torah Kitisa this week. Otherwise, I have to tell you, I'm wearing my finery. I'm wearing finery.
I wore my
Maybe
pearls
should
for
have
you
done
today,
it.
Annette.
Huh?
I said I wore my pearls for you today because
I
you
wore
said you
my
were going to dress up,
pearls
so
too.
I did too.
And it's your bat
It is
mitzvah.
my bat mitzvah parsha as well, and I wouldn't want to share it with anyone else. You are a blessing to our community, and I will give you a bracha after you read.
Now, I
But
want to tell them what page it's on. It's page, because I'm not reading from Eight's kind.
That's
It's
fine.
880. And I have no idea.
880. You heard it here first. I will give you a blessing afterwards, but I want to just say that you said that this was an honor for you to have, but I actually believe that this is an honor for all of us to hear you read. So it is my honor to call you to the Torah, and we will be on page 880. What?
That's me. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Okay. I'm a little nervous. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe v'Aharon lemor zot hukat haTorah asher tziva Adonai lemor daber el bnei Yisrael v'yichu alecha faradama tamima asher ein bo mum asher lo ala leha o unatatem ota el Elazar hakohen v'hotzi ota el makutz lamachane v'shochad ota lifanav v'lokav Elazar hakohen midama ba'etzba'o v'hizah el nocha panei ohel moed midama sheva pamim v'sorach et hapara le'anav et orah v'et v'sorah v'etama al pirsha yisroel v'lokach kahen Eitz eres ve'ezov ushni tala'at ve'hishli el tov serafat ha'parah ve'hipes bagadav ha'kohen ve'rachatz b'sarav b'mayim va'achar yavo ha'machaneh v'tomei ha'kohen ad ha'arev v'hasorei ota yichabes bagadav b'mayim v'rachatz b'sarav b'mayim v'tomei ad ha'arev v'hasav ish tahor 8 efer ha'parah v'hiniach Mechutz lamakaneh b'makom tahor v'hayatah la'adat b'nei Yisroel l'mishmeret l'menidah chatadhim v'chibes ha'osef et efer ha'parah et begadav v'tomei ad ha'arev v'hayatah livnei Yisroel v'lager agar b'tocham l'chukad olam anogea b'mei l'kol nefesh adam v'tomei shivat yomim hu yetatavo bayom hashlishi ubayom hashvi'i yetahar ve'im lo yetata bayom hashlishi Uvayom hashvi lo yitahar kol hanogeh b'mei b'nefesh Adam asher yamut below yitkata at Mishkan Adonai Timei v'nichrota hanefesh ahi meYisrael ki me'nita lo zarak alav tamei oh tumatovo zot haTorah Adam ki yamut ba'ohel kohaba El ha'ohel v'kol asher ba'ohel yitamav shivat yamim v'kol kli patuach asher ein samid patil ala tamehu v'kol asher yigal al pnei hasodeh b'chal al-cherev v'mei over etzem adam over cover yitamaha shivat yomim v'lachu latame me'afar sarafat hakatat v'natan Allah mayim chayim el keli v'lakach ezo v'tavo b'mayim Ish tahor vehiza al ha'ohel v'al ha'kalim v'ha'nefashot asher hayusham v'al hanogeh v'etzem o v'kala o v'mehed o v'kaver v'hiza hatahor Ahatamei bayom hashlishi uvayom hashvi'i v'hita'al bayom hashvi'i v'kibes bagadav v'rakatz b'mayim v'taher ba'aret v'ish asher yitamach Lo yitkata v'nichrota hanefesh hahi mito kakahal ki et mikdash Adonai timei mehi nida lo zarak alav tamehu v'hayata lohem lo chukat olam Umazeh mehanita yechabes bagado hanogea b'mei hanida yitama ad ha'arem b'kol asher yigabo hatamei yitama v'hanefesh hanogat titama ad ha'arem.
Yasher koach Annette. That was beautiful.
I had to put in about Al Kelly. I don't know if Michael Berenbaum is probably not on, but when we were in Library Million, Michael always pointed out that we had an Irishman in the middle of this reading, Al Kelly.
I'm sure he. Oh, I get it. I'm sure he. I'm sure he will really appreciate that. Annette, you are someone who brings community together. When I think of you and when I think of your lovely husband, Abe, I think of community and I think of love. You are the epitome of what it means to be someone who shows love and who wants others to feel love. And part of what you just read is bringing people together. It's bringing people together in different states of purity. We're not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about the nice parts. That it's about bringing people to a state where they can enjoy one another, where they can show love to one another, where they can show support and compassion to one another. And that is you, Annette. You bring that in everything that you do. You want that for everyone you are around. Community flocks to be around you and Abe. And I've shared this with you, and I will share this with everyone. One of the holiest moments in my life was here in this sanctuary when Abe last read Haftorah, kneeling beside him with a microphone because he couldn't be heard by the microphone that was on the stand because he was sitting in a wheelchair, and getting to be approximately 6 inches from his face as he read that Haftorah beautifully, but with you 6 inches behind him. You wanted to be there to support him and to show your love for him and to make sure that the community celebrated him and celebrated you. And so I hope for all of us that you are with us for many, many, many more years, this birthday and many more to come, because we are a better community with you in it.
Thank you.
And we are a more supported and a more loving community because you and Abe show us how. So I want to give you a Misha Berach, Annette. Say, I know you said your name at the beginning, but say it slowly and I won't talk over you.
Chana, Pesha, Rachel.
Chana, Pesha, Bracha?
Rachel.
Rachel. Chana, Pesha, Rachel.
Bat Shalom.
Is that
Bat Shalom.
okay?
Pesha.
Ufesha? Okay. Wait, say it one more time.
Bat Shalom. Peace.
The first part.
I'm a Ufesha. My mother was Pesha.
So Chana, it's like a comedy routine.
Let's go.
Okay, Chana, say it one more time fully, and I'm going to really try to remember it.
Chana, Pesha, Rachel.
Okay,
Bat Shalom, Ufesha.
great. If I don't remember it, you'll say it in the middle, okay?
Yeah.
Misha Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachav Leah Yivarech Chana Pesha Rachel Bat Shalom Ve Pesha. Is that right? I'm getting nods. Okay.
Close enough.
שעלה היום לכבוד המקום ולכבוד התורה ולכבוד השבת ולהודות לשם קודשו על כל החסד אשר גמלה מיום הלבדה עד היום הזה. הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור אותה מכל נגע ומחלה ויוסיף לה שנות חיים מלאים בריאות ואהבה, שלום ושלווה, וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיה, עם כל ישראל אחיה ואחיותיה, ונאמר amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless Annette Berman, who has ascended today to honor God, the Torah, and Shabbat, and to thank God for all the blessings God has bestowed on her from the day of her birth until today. May God protect you from all disease and illness and bless you with a long life filled with good health and love. And may God send blessing and success in your endeavors. And let us say, Amen. Yom Huledet Sameach. Yom Huledet Sameach. Yom Huledet Sameach. Yom Huledet Sameach.
Thank you.
Yasher Koach, Annette. It is our honor to have you as part of our community, and it was a blessing to hear you read this morning.
Thank you.
We will continue now with the Haftarah for Parshat Parah, for Shabbat Parah, I guess also Parshat Parah, which is on page 12 something,
86. 1286.
12 what?
1286.
1286. Oh, thank you, Michelle. I didn't know who was saying that. 1286. And Eitan Snyder is going to be reading for us. So if he can be unmuted and spotlit.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, page 1286, 87. Eitan.
All right.
And we won't do the blessings, Eitan, so you'll just start with the Haftarah.
Amazing. Great. Vayhi devar Adonai Elai lemor ben Adam בית ישראל יושבים על אדמתם, ויטמאו אותה בדרכם ובעלילתם, כתומת הנידה הייתה דרכם לפניי, וישפוך חמתי עליהם, הדם אשר שפכו על הארץ, ובגילוליהם טימאוה, ואפיץ אותם בגויים, ויזהרו בארצות, כדרכם בחלילותם, שבטים, ויבוא אל הגויים אשר באו שם, ויחללו את שם קודשי, באמור להם עם אדוני אלה, ומארצו יצאו, וחמו על שם קודשי, אשר יהללוהו בית ישראל, בגויים אשר באו שמה, לכן אמור לבית ישראל, כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, לא למענכם, אני עושה לבית ישראל, כי אם לשם קודשי אשר חיללתם בגויים אשר באתם שם, וקידשתי את שמי הגדול, המחולל בגויים אשר חיללתם בתוכם, וידעו הגויים כי אני אדוני, נאום אדוני אלוהים, והקדשי בכם לעיניהם, ולקחתי אתכם מן הגויים, וקיבצתי אתכם מכל הארצות, והבאתי אתכם אל אדמתכם, וזרקתי עליכם מים טהורים וטהרתם מכל טומאותיכם ומכל גילוליכם אטהר אתכם, ונתתי לכם לב חדש ורוח חדשה אתן בקרבכם, והסירותי את לב האבן מבשרכם, ונתתי לכם לב בשר, ואת רוחי אתן בקרבכם, ועשיתי את אשר בחוקי תלכו, ומשפטי תשמרו, ועשיתם, וישבתם בארץ אשר נתתי לאבותיכם, והייתם לי לעם, ואנוכי אהיה לכם לאלוהים, והושעתי אתכם מכל טומאותיכם, וקראתי על הדגן, והרביתי אותו, ולא אתן עליכם רב, והרביתי את פרי העץ, ותנובת השדה, למען אשר לא תלכו עוד חרפת רעב בגויים, וזכרתם את דרכיכם הרעים ומעלליכם אשר לא טובים, ונקוטתם בפניכם על עוונותיכם ועל תועבותיכם. לא למענכם אני עושה, נאום אדוני אלוהים יוודע לכם, בושו ויקלמו מדרכיכם בית ישראל. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, ביום תראי אתכם מכל עוונותיכם, והושבתי את הערים ונבנו החרבות, והארץ הנשמה תאבד תחת אשר הייתה שממה לעיני כל עובר, ואמרו הארץ הלזו הנשמה הייתה כגן עדן, והערים החרבות, והנשמות והנהרסות, בצורות ישבו, וידעו הגויים, אשר יישארו סביבותיכם, כי אני אדוני, בניתי הנהרסות, נתתי הנשמה, אני אדוני, דיברתי ועשיתי. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, עוד זאת יידרש לבית ישראל לעשות להם הרבה אותם כצאן אדם, כצאן קדושים, כצאן ירושלים במועדיה, כן תהיינה הערים החרבות, מלאות צאן אדם, וידעו כי אני אדוני.
Yeah, Shakoach, Eitan. I believe I introduced Eitan just a few months ago as a new member of our community. He is not a rabbinical student, though everyone thinks he is because he's a young person who comes to Temple Beth Am. But he's not. He's just a great Jew doing wonderful things in the world. And it's lovely to have you here and lovely to hear your beautiful voice sing a Haftorah for us. So thank you for being here, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm very conscious of time, and I want us to be able to do a little learning together. So we're going to do a prayer for our country and a prayer for Israel. And then Larry Herman, I hope that you'll forgive me. We're going to skip Ashrei, and we're going to do a little learning together. But for right now, we're on page 177 or page 148 or page 414, a prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say, Amen. A prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'goalo, Barech Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu, Hagen Aleha be'evrat chastecha, Ufros Aleha sukat shlomecha, Ushlach orcha v'amicha l'rasheha, Sareha v'yotzeha, V'taknem be'etzah tova milfanecha, Chazek et yedei migne eretz kodshenu, V'hanchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, V'ateret nitzachon ta'atrem, V'natata shalom ba'aretz, V'simchat olam leyoshveha, V'nomar Amen. We've done a lot of Torah today, which is wonderful always. So we're going to not take as much time as we might for the learning because you don't all need to stay here until 3 p.m. Though what we are about to learn, I hope you will continue to think about. This was something that I had not read this passage in this way before, but it is a passage that we all know extremely well. It's the passage of the building of the golden calf. So if you have the source sheet from the bulletin in front of you, wonderful. If not, we're going to be looking at the verses Exodus 32, 1 through 7. So if you just have a Chumash, you can open up Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 7. And as I mentioned before, I want us to really think about how these verses connect to this idea of refugee Shabbat. So I've never thought about the golden calf from the perspective of the people who built it, because we often think about the fact that it was the wrong thing to do. So we don't then sit back and wonder, why did they do it? What could have been flowing through them that made them feel as though the golden calf was going to bring them some amount of security or some amount of protection? They didn't know what was going on. And this, to me, is like a perfect refugee text, refugee story. Because one of the things that I think we wrongly do when talking about refugees of any country to any country is we talk about where they came from and we talk about when they arrived. But very often we forget to ask the story of how they got there. Right? We don't often talk about the Mitzrayim or the Midbar necessarily that the refugees are going through to get to this place. Because we in 2021, in modern day, we are focused on how to make sure once they are in our midst, they feel comfortable, they feel welcome, they are taken care of, they have homes, they have shelter, they have food, they have everything they need, which is extremely important. But I don't think that we often focus on that travel period and what they might have been thinking, what they might have needed in those moments that we weren't part of. And so when I read this experience of the golden calf, thinking through that lens, it's a completely different story, because now it's not something bad. It's something that felt necessary to the people in that moment. And sure, we don't want to believe that we are a people that sees an idol as something that is that brings us safety or brings us comfort. But this people who were in a state of limbo, literally in the midbar, in an unknown, unboundaried location, needed boundaries, needed to have some sort of dimension to what was going on. Moses had taken a long time on the mountain, and they didn't know what was going on. So they needed to create something that would be for them a vessel of boundary. So we are going to do this interactively for 10, 12-ish minutes. So if you have something to say, you are going to be allowed to unmute. However, please still raise your hand so that I can call on you and you don't all talk at once. And we won't all be able to speak. So I'm just going to say that from the outset. Feel free to send me an email after Shabbat. Many of you do. I love reading how you interpret my teachings. Feel free to tell me what you think if you don't get a chance to speak in person right now. Okay, Exodus chapter 32, verses 1 through 7. So let's start. We're going to read in the English for time's sake. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that man Moses, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." So this is the first moment where the people are wondering, so we had a leader. The leader took us to this place. Now we don't know where our leader is. And we don't know what to do. Okay, everybody with me thus far? Does anybody disagree with that premise? I always love a good disagreement. No? Okay, all right, we'll keep going. Hopefully you disagree with something else I say. Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all of your bling, take it off. And all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. They did what he said. This he took from them and cast in a mold and made it into a molten calf. And they exclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." That is a very complicated sentence, right? Very complicated verse. So Aaron is the one in this moment who we believe is making the golden calf. Okay, not the people, though it's their stuff. And they say to, we assume, the calf, the golden calf, "This is your God, O Israel." So they are now praising this statue as God. So my first question to all of you is, what's the confusion here? Between verse 1 and verse 4, there's been a shift. What is the shift that has happened between verse 1 and verse 4? Yeah, Paula.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So can I go back to the first verse, and why didn't Aaron say, "No, Moses is, going to be back. Let's trust God and our leader"? Why wasn't he pushing back against the people? Why did he immediately just say, "Okay, take off your earrings, your finery. Let's do that"? And then I think maybe he experiences regret and he sees, "Oh my goodness, what have I done?" and he tries to make it transformative, that it's just a representation of God, the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, like remembering our narrative, like really our most important transformative event.
Great. Great. I'm going to let that sit because there are other hands, but fantastic comment. Larry or Diane, and then Tamar.
So briefly, I'm just going to point out that Alter claims that in verses 1 and in verse 4, the Elohim is plural and not translated as we translate it as singular. So in fact, what they've reverted to is a polytheism that they had previously. That begs the question of whether in fact the Hebrews were monotheistic before they were taken out to the wilderness. But if you take this, extending what you said, this may often be the case of refugees who, not given the right support, will revert to their former culture and former practices, which polytheistically would then be in opposition to the culture in which they're being integrated, something like that.
Something like that is exactly the drosh. So we could be done now and just move to Musaf. That was beautiful and exactly what I'm going for. And Larry, the thing that I think in Alter pointing out that it's plural, which was the prompt that I was going to, and I hope tomorrow I'm not stealing your thunder, is that the people at the beginning in verse 1 are talking about Moshe no longer coming down. And then all of a sudden they're equating Moshe to God now, right? So at first they were just nervous about not having a leader. And then all of a sudden now they're saying, well, forget about the Moshe guy. We just need a God. So it's interesting for a whole host of reasons that Elohim is plural. And I think the kind of smushing together of Moshe and God's a technical term in rabbinic Judaism, smushing together of Moshe and God, that could be seen as a reason that Elohim here is plural, even though we don't think of as Moshe as God, obviously. But in this moment, the people are. So your drosh is beautiful, and great minds think alike. Tamar.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, no.
Fine.
Did I really?
It's fine.
I'm so sorry. I had a feeling I might, but Tamar, you'll have good Torah to share with us afterwards. Okay, Joanna.
Building a little bit on what Larry said, I think sometimes what we want to see and hear is like the easy solution of like the one magic transformative moment. Yeah. And, as much as happened to Bnei Yisrael, at the moment that they left Egypt or that they received the 10 Commandments, a magical transformative moment when everything changed for them. And it's really a process and takes a long, long time. And I think in terms of applying it to refugees, like, when we first hear of them in our midst, we tend to infuse a lot of support, but do we keep thinking about it in the long term? Because I think it takes a long time to achieve full community integration and a full sense of belonging. Great. And in fact, if you talk to many immigrants, they will tell you that they always feel like an immigrant. So even many, many years later. Sure. So I think it's a lesson in thinking about big picture and long term.
Great. Carl.
So looking a little further forward, I think there's a word that appears twice, something along the lines of break out. Aaron is accused of letting the people break out. And I think this isn't quite aligned with your refugee theme, but maybe a different theme of peoplehood and leadership, that when people get nervous, worried, anxious, they need some kind of guidance in how to deal with it, how to channel it. And Aaron isn't giving them any guidance. He's just going with the mob nervousness.
Yes.
So lessons in leadership.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that, and we're going to read these next few verses in a second, but I think one of the, okay, Karen, because I love you so much. Last word.
This is Aaron, Moses's brother,
Yeah.
the high priest, all that.
Yeah. All that whole guy. Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay, great. All right, I lost my other train of thought. Karen Cass for the win, everyone. All right, so chapter 32, verse 5. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron, the high priest, that whole guy, Karen, announced, "Tomorrow shall be a festival of the Lord." So not only are they making this golden calf, but now they are creating a whole festival around this calf being in existence and being something to be praised. Early the next day, the people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. They sat down to eat and drink and then rose to dance. Adonai spoke to Moses, "Hurry down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have acted basely." So again, not only are we creating this golden calf, this symbol of idolatry, but the people are rejoicing around it as if they've found what they needed, right? They found their leadership. They found their God. They found their comfort in this golden calf. And God then says to Moses, "We got to be done here. This meeting needs to end because those people need your leadership. They need to know what it is that comes next for them. They've lost it. They don't have any boundaries right now. So they've created their own boundaries." Okay. We are going to look at 2 of 8 sources that I sent you. But again, if you didn't print the source sheet and you would like to later, you'll see these sources at another time. So Rashi says on this line that do I want to read Rashi? Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to decide which of all these sources I have time to share. So Rashi says the people recognize there used to be someone who used to show them the way, Moshe, right? Who used to show them the way. Now that Moshe is dead, the people believe, we need gods which shall go before us. So the Torah that Tamar put into my brain that I shared in her words is that they are comparing Moshe to God here. Moshe's gone, therefore we need gods. And similar to Larry's point, if we put ourselves into a situation where we no longer have structure, we no longer have boundaries in modern day Judaism, we no longer have halacha, all of a sudden everything's game, right? So they could have multiple gods because they didn't know where their one God was in that moment. They had lost connection. Okay. We're going to read the Ramban also here. Yes, Rick. You just have to unmute. Yeah,
okay. Hi. So in verse 5, it's a miscommunication also because Aaron is trying to be tricky about things. And he says, okay, let's make an altar and we're going to worship Adonai, not Elohim, not the gods of Egypt. We're going to worship Adonai. So he's trying to, they're thinking one thing and he's thinking another. And it's not going well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, especially based on Alter's connection for verse 1 and 4 that are Elohim, right? That now Aaron is trying to get them to use God, the God that they know of as the God who delivered them from the land of Egypt, and not any kind of polytheistic representation of the divine. So that's a very close read that Aaron is trying to steer them back towards where they're supposed to go. But because this golden calf, which is beautiful and in front of their faces, they seem to still be going in that path when really Aaron's trying to take them in this one. Very interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. Okay, Ramban. Ramban says, what they needed was a new man of God. It's not, you don't usually hear that in Judaism, but again, we are equating Moshe to God and vice versa here. You can learn from Aaron's excuse to Moses that it is as I have explained. They said to me, make us a God to lead us, not a God to worship. He explained to Moshe, as long as you were gone, they needed a guide. If you should return, they would leave him and follow you as they had done at first. In fact, this is exactly what happened, says Nachmanides. As soon as the people saw Moshe, they abandoned the calf contemptuously, letting Moshe burn it and grind it to powder without anyone intervening. In fact, they fled from the calf without Moshe saying a word to them. If they had really worshipped the calf, they certainly would not have let Moshe burn it without stoning him to death. So, though I think that they wrote their own like Hollywood production in that commentary. I'm not sure that they would have stoned him, but it is interesting that the people don't seem to be angry with the fact that the calf goes away, because all they needed was a leader. So as soon as the leader resurfaces, they don't need that calf any longer. And similar to those of us who are in transition from living at home to living alone, from high school to college, from getting out of a terrible situation and moving to a different country, whatever it is, whether you are a refugee in the literal sense of the word, or you are just someone who is moving from one thing to another, we all have those moments of, do I take that with me, or do I go with what I know is going to come to me to be of support and comfort that I knew before that's going to now come back? In that limbo area, in that midbar, they needed something to bring them back to the leadership that they knew that they had and they knew that they were going to have. Hannah, I see your hand. Let me just give my final thing, and then you can have the final word. By the way, I just want to point out that Rashbam, I'm not going to read the commentary, but Rashbam's commentary, the English translation, the first line of the English translation is, were the Israelites all idiots? I just wanted you all to know that was a commentary I brought, and you should all read it. Okay. We see, okay, I also see Bobby. So, okay, hold on 1 second. Let me finish this, and then you can both speak. We see 10 chapters ago, or we learn, we remind ourselves that we shall not wrong the stranger or oppress the stranger, because we were strangers in the land of Egypt. And the Aderet Eliyahu says, you know the sorrow of the stranger, and we learned you also know the soul of the stranger. So when we are thinking about what happened in the midbar, in the in-between space from being slaves to being free, we know what that's like. We know what it's like to feel like a people who didn't know what was coming next, who didn't know how to find those boundaries, find that safety. And so we can't blame ourselves, if you believe that we were all there, or our ancestors, for creating something that was going to provide them with that feeling of being home, of being comforted, of being with a leader that was going to take care of them. So the last thing I will say, and then I'll let our congregants have the last word, is that I know we dedicate once a year a Shabbat to Refugee Shabbat, but that means that from March 6th to next March whatever, that there's a midbar in there, that we need to make sure that we are taking care of people between the moment that we are thinking of them and that we are droshing from them on the bima to the next moment that we do that. Because those golden calves are very easy to erect. They're very easy to find something that will take you off the path because you think it'll bring you comfort. But it's our job, it was Aaron's job, and it was Moshe's job to be the ones to bring that comfort from the beginning into the middle and then at the end. Not just when they're in our midst, and not just when we can welcome them through our doors, but also in their journey to coming home. or their journey through whatever transition they're going through. So I hope that we can all remember that we were these strangers. We were these strangers in the land of Egypt, and we needed that comfort and we needed that help. And so now that we have found that community and we have found our leaders and we have found those who provide that for us, we need to do that for others who are struggling to create their own homes and to create their own leaders. Chana, Bobby, Ein Kelohenu.
I guess I noticed here that early next day, the people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices, and they sat down to eat and drink and then rose to dance. So maybe they needed a festival. Maybe it wasn't worship that they needed, but they just needed something to be happy about. So
Amen.
There's mine.
Yeah, I am. As was mentioned earlier, I see this as part of a continuum. Do we worship Moses or do we try to emulate Moses? And, Moses negotiates with God, and that's what most of us do as Jews. We're not looking for a godlike leader. We're not looking for Jesus. We're looking for leadership and trying to find God. And I do see it as part of an evolutionary process. And I guess, we're not supposed to be idol worshipers. And I guess what you raise gives us understanding as to why, but it's still, it's not a Jewish thing to, worship idols, except Billy Idol. But anyway, I'm sorry. Sure.
Yeah, no, that's a good joke. I think you're right. And I think that even if we are not a people that believes in idol worship, meaning putting a statue in the sanctuary, we all have idols, right? We all have things that we hold too high up in our lives, or we all have things like our phones or our email or these days Zoom that we worship because they allow us access to something. And I think that that's what the people were doing here. You're completely right that we don't try to find our leaders as God figures. We try to find the holiness in everybody, but there are ways in which we idolize that which shouldn't become idols. And I think that is something that we don't make it into a golden calf, but we do make it into something that takes away from the spirituality of finding that comfort or that support in other things, I think. I will suggest that you daven your Musaf Amidah on your own at home so that we can end close to noon, which we always try to do. So we're going to do the last few pieces together after the Amidah. Again, you're more than welcome to either daven it now or after we conclude on your own. But Ein Kelohenu can be found on page 204 or page 182 or page 508. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshinu, Michelohenu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshinu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Emalkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shiktiru, Avotenu, Lefanecha Eketoret Hasamim, Aleinu Leshabeach Ladon Hakol, Lateit Gedula Leotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoy Haratzot, Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Adamam, Shelo Samchalkenu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu, Kechol Hamonam, Vanachnu Korim, Umishachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz U'Moshe v'Kirov Hashemayim Yilah. Kakatu betoratecha Adonai yimlach le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz bayom ahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, shemo, u'shemo echad. We'll spotlight and unmute Isaac Budai to lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 207 or page 184 or page 512.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
יתעלמה דיברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לאין לה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Amen.
יעשה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
And Isaac, would you like to share with everyone who you are saying Kaddish for? Who's your site?
For my younger brother who passed away over 35 years ago due to cancer, but his memory is still alive.
Yehi zichro baruch, may his memory forever be a blessing. Yasher Koach to all those who did all the things. Cantor Michelle Stone and Rick Muller and Annette Berman and Eitan Snyder. And I think that's it. For being here, for leading. It was a lot of Torah today. Wonderful to have you with us. We are going to do Kiddush and then Adon Olam. And the one thing I will say is, in terms of what are they called? Announcements, is we have Mincha tonight at 5:40. I will be teaching, so if you would like to see me again, I would love to see you again. At 5:40 in this same Zoom room, it will not close. So if you would like to just keep the Zoom on so that you don't have to deal with it on Shabbat, it will stay on, though the live stream will end. And tonight there is a program for 2nd through 5th grade families for Refugee Shabbat. And there's a lot of Passover programming. We hope you will come. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. there is a specific program for Refugee Shabbat as well as Pesach. So if you are interested in that, the Social Action Committee put together a really beautiful program with CAST, with 1LA, and with Hayes. Okay, Kiddush, page 77, if you would like to follow along, 77, 315, or 734. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael tashabat l'sor tashabat l'dor tam berit olam beinu v'en v'nei Yisrael tili olam ki sheshim masad Adonai tashamayim v'taretz u'v'yom hashvihi shavat v'yinafash zachort yom hashabat l'kodsho shetin yamim tava v'tzitecha melehtecha v'yom hashvihi shabat l'Adonai Elohecha lo tasechom lecha ata uvincha uvitecha avdecha v'yamcha uv'yamtecha v'kerecha asher misharecha ki sheshim yamim masad Adonai tashamayim v'taretz et hayam v'kol asher bam v'yanach b'yom hashvihi al kim barach Adonai et yom hashabat v'yikadshehu savri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. We usually do this in person, but I just want to mention one new face, not only to our Zoom, but also to Los Angeles. David is a rabbinical student at Ziegler who just moved to Los Angeles to continue his first year at Ziegler, and it is lovely to have you. And I'm sure that we will hear from you in many wonderful rabbinic and musical ways over the years, but it's wonderful to say hello on your first Shabbat here in Los Angeles. Adon Olam, folks, page 211 or 187 or 514, or feel free to leave, but I will sing you out. What tune should I do? Okay, Rabbi Warshawski did this tune this morning, so I'll do it here. Yanai na 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 na, yanai na 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 yanai, yanai na 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 na, yanai. nay 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 nay, yain a nay 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 nay, yain a nay a nay nay yo, yain a nay a nay 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 nay, yain a nay a nay 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 nay. Adonai lama sherma lach beterem kol yetzir nivra, le'ein nasa bechefso kol azai melech shemo nikra, ve'acharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora, ve'hu haya ve'hu hove ve'hu yeh betifara, ve'hu echad ve'yein sheni le'amshilo le'achbira, be'li reshi be'li tachli ve'lo oz ve'ami yisra, ve'hu eli ve'chai goli ve'tzorchev li be'eit tzara, ve'hu nisi umanos li menakosi be'yom ekra, be'yado avkid ruchi be'eit ishan ve'aira, ve'imruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira, yain anai anai nai nai, yain anai anai nai nai, yain anai anai nai nai nai, yain anai anai nai nai nai. Shabbat shalom, everyone. See you soon.